It had been a while since Ryan and I had a proper weekend to just hang out like we used to in high school. Life had gotten busier, jobs, side gigs, dating disasters, but somehow we always circled back to each other. So when he invited me over for a chill Friday night, I didn't hesitate. Just like old times, he said with that lopsided grin. Pizza, trash TV, and me kicking your ass in Mario Kart, I laughed. In your dreams. Ryan's house had always been familiar, almost like a second home. But now that his parents were divorced, it felt a little different. Quieter. There were traces of his mom still around, a decorative pillow here, a framed quote about family on the wall. But the energy had shifted. The air seemed stiller. Mr. Bennett, his dad, greeted me with a nod and a warm, if tired, smile when I arrived. "Good to see you again," he said, closing the door behind me. He looked a bit older than I remembered. Some gray along the temples, deeper lines around the eyes. Still handsome, though, in that quiet, understated way. "You too, Mr. Bennett," I said. "Please, just call me David." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I could bring myself to say it out loud. He'd always been Mr. Bennett in my head, the slightly mysterious, sharply dressed man who rarely spoke much, but always seemed to notice everything. When we were younger, I used to think he was intimidating. Now, I wasn't sure what I thought. We didn't talk much at first. He just offered me a drink, soda or water, and then disappeared into his study while Ryan and I took over the living room. We ordered pepperoni pizza, unrolled sleeping bags in front of the couch, and powered up the game console. It was easy, comfortable, the kind of night where laughter came easily and silence didn't feel awkward. We trash-talked each other, yelled at the screen, and burned through a box of cheesy bread like it was nothing. Around 10, Ryan stretched and groaned dramatically. "Man, I'm wiped. I had to be at the office at 6 this morning." I raised an eyebrow. "Old man, hours already?" "Shut up," he mumbled, already walking toward the stairs. "You can keep watching if you want. You remember where everything is?" "Yep." "Cool. Good-night, loser." "Night, loser." He disappeared up the staircase, and the house seemed to settle. The only sounds were the soft hum of the TV and the occasional creak of the old heating system. I flipped through streaming apps until I landed on some mindless cooking show, the kind where contestants stress over creme brulee under blinding lights. I didn't expect anyone else to be awake, so when I heard footsteps, I instinctively muted the TV and glanced over my shoulder. Mr. Bennett, David, I corrected myself silently, walked into the living room holding a mug. He wasn't wearing a suit like he usually did back when I used to see him at school events. Just a soft navy t-shirt and worn-in flannel pants. The casual look made him seem different. Not exactly younger, but more real somehow. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. He nodded, settling onto the recliner near the couch. "Not really. This house gets quiet fast." I offered a polite smile and reached for the remote. "I can turn it off if it's too loud." He shook his head. "No, it's fine." "What are we watching?" I told him. He chuckled softly. "They always forget the sugar, or the gelatin, or some basic thing. And they always look shocked." "Exactly," I said. "That's the best part." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Him sipping his drink, me half watching the show but fully aware of his presence. There was nothing weird about it. Just two people sharing a space. Still, I found myself glancing at him more than once, noticing little things. The way his jaw tensed when he was thinking. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed at something on screen. Eventually, he leaned back and sighed. The kind of sigh that carried more weight than it let on. "You boys have a good night?" he asked. "Yeah, just like the old days. Honestly, I missed this." He looked over at me then, something soft in his expression. "It's good to have the house feel alive again, even just for a night." That sentence stayed with me. Echoed, longer than it should have. The TV buzzed on. The chefs kept yelling. But my mind wandered, not far, not dangerously, but just enough to wonder about this man who'd always been on the sidelines of my life, polite, distant, untouched, and, now, sitting across from me in the quiet glow of the living room, as if something had shifted. Slightly. Subtly. But I didn't lean into it. Not yet. Mr. Bennet didn't go back upstairs. Instead, he walked over to the couch and sank into the other end, careful not to get too close, but close enough that the shift in the room was unmistakable. He rested his mug on a coaster, exhaled like he was trying to release something he'd been carrying all day, and glanced at the paused cooking show on the screen. "You still watching?" he asked. "Kind of," I said. "It's background. Noise more than anything." He nodded slowly. "You mind if we talk instead?" That surprised me, not because I didn't want to, just that I didn't expect him to ask. Mr. Bennet had always been polite, well-mannered, reserved, but never chatty, never open. "Sure," I said, sitting up a little straighter, tucking my legs under me. He smiled faintly and turned toward me. "So, what's going on with you these days? School? Work?" "Still in school. Last semester, finally," I said. "Can't wait to be done." And after that, I gave a short laugh. "Honestly, I have no clue. I'm just trying to get through finals. Everyone acts like we should have our whole lives figured out by 22. I still don't even know what city I want to live in," he chuckled. "That doesn't go away, by the way. I'm 47 and I'm still trying to figure things out." There was something in his voice, not just humor, but a kind of quiet defeat, like someone who'd fought hard to stay afloat and wasn't sure which shore he'd landed on. "I thought you had everything figured out," I said, trying to keep it light. He leaned his head back against the cushion, eyes on the ceiling. "I thought I did too. Then one day your wife sits across from you and says she doesn't love you anymore, and you realize maybe all the certainty you built your life on was just noise." I wasn't sure what to say to that. It wasn't the kind of thing adults usually said to me, especially not adults I'd known since I was a teenager. "I'm sorry," I said finally. He shook his head. "Don't be. It's not pity I want, just space, to be honest, I guess." He looked at me then. Really looked. There was no awkwardness in it. No expectation. Just a quiet kind of searching, like he wanted to be understood without having to say every word. "Ryan talks about you a lot," he said. "Says you're one of the few people who really gets him." I smiled. "He's like a brother to me." Mr. Bennet nodded. "You've got that kind of steadiness, calm energy." "I fake it well," I said, trying to laugh, but it came out thinner than I intended. He tilted his head. "You don't feel steady?" I hesitated. I wasn't used to being asked that question, let alone by him. Some days I do. Other days I feel like I'm just reacting. Like I'm trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be, not who I actually am. "Yeah," he said softly, like he understood exactly what I meant. "I know that feeling." The room felt heavier, not in a bad way. Just more real. Like the layers of small talk had finally peeled away, and we were sitting in the quiet, honest middle of things. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "This house is too quiet now," he said. "After the divorce, it was like someone turned the volume down on my life. I didn't realize how much I'd come to rely on noise to feel okay." I looked around. I understood what he meant. The silence in that house had a presence, like a ghost walking the halls. I'd felt it the moment I stepped through the door, but now I could name it. Loneliness. "I hate being alone sometimes," I admitted. "I always thought I was independent, but now I'm not sure. There are nights where I'd do anything just to hear someone breathing in the next room." His eyes met mine, and in that look was something quiet and vast. Recognition. Empathy. We didn't say anything for a while. The cooking show flickered on, the lights from the screen washing his face in a soft blue glow. I noticed the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the way he breathed through his nose, slowly, as if grounding himself in the moment. "I don't talk like this often," he said, voice low. "Not even with Ryan. It's not that he wouldn't. Listen, it's just different. He's my son. There are some things you can't unload on your kid. I get that. But with you..." He paused. "It's easy. Maybe because you're not expecting anything from me. Or maybe because you're just here. And that's more than most people have been." He gave a half smile. Something sad and grateful at the same time. It's nice having someone to talk to, he said. I forgot what that felt like. The words landed gently but deeply. I looked at him then, not as Ryan's dad, not as the man who used to chaperone field trips or drive us to soccer games, but as a person, a human being carrying quiet heartbreak and unexpected tenderness. I didn't know what was happening between us. I didn't even know if anything was happening. But I felt closer to him than I had to most people in months. And in that silence, long, soft, and full of something unspoken, I felt seen, not by accident, but on purpose. Mr. Bennett stood up slowly, stretching his back with a soft grunt. I thought he was heading upstairs, the kind of natural end to a late-night conversation. Instead, he turned toward the kitchen and said over his shoulder, "Feel like a nightcap? Just one." I blinked. "Sure," I said, before I even thought about it. A minute later, he returned with 2 short glasses. No labels, just amber liquid that caught the light as he handed one to me. Our fingers brushed when I took it. A light touch, nothing more. But neither of us pulled away immediately. He sat, back down on the couch, this time a little closer than before. Not touching close, but close enough that the shift was clear. The air between us felt warmer somehow, like the room itself had drawn in a breath. He clinked his glass gently against mine. "To late nights," he said. "To unexpected ones," I replied. We drank in silence for a few moments. The liquor was smooth, a slow burn down the throat. I wasn't sure what kind it was, only that it tasted expensive. Or maybe it just tasted like something shared in confidence. From somewhere down the hall, soft music started playing. A mellow jazz tune drifting from an old speaker, barely audible. It gave the moment a soundtrack, as if the night had chosen its own mood and we were just living in it. He swirled his drink in the glass and looked ahead, eyes on nothing. "Ever think about the paths you didn't take?" he asked. I glanced at him. "All the time." He nodded. "There's this version of me I sometimes imagine, younger, braver, more in touch with what he wanted. I wonder where he would have ended up." I let the words settle before responding. "You still have time, you know, to be that version." He smiled, but it was bittersweet. "I appreciate that. But some doors close without slamming. You don't even realize they're locked until you reach for the handle." That line stayed with me. I watched his face as he spoke. The way his eyes softened, not with sadness, but with something more complex. Regret, maybe. Acceptance. A kind of quiet ache that didn't scream but hummed under the surface. "What would you have done differently?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. Tilted his head, considering. "I would have listened more, to my gut, to the people who tried to tell me I was heading in the wrong direction. I would have stopped choosing what's safe over what's real." He looked at me then, not searching, just seeing. "It's rare, these days," he said softly, "to meet someone who actually listens when you talk, who doesn't try to fix you or change the subject. You're kind, thoughtful, rare." I didn't know what to say. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wasn't used to compliments like that. Not the kind that had nothing to do with looks or performance or grades. The kind that made you feel seen, not for what you did, but for who you quietly were when no one was watching. "Thank you," I said finally. He nodded. Took another slow sip. The jazz played on, delicate horns weaving through the silence. I became aware of how close we were sitting, how our legs were angled slightly toward each other, how his knee almost grazed mine when he leaned back again. There was a tension in the air, not sexual, not overt, but charged, like a thread pulled tight between 2 still hands. He set his glass down on the table, the sound small but echoing. "I should get to bed," he said. But he didn't move. Instead, he looked at his hand for a moment, then reached out, slowly, deliberately, and touched mine. Just a light press of his fingers against the back of my hand, barely there, but unmistakable. My breath caught, not because I was shocked, but because the moment held so much weight for how subtle it was. I didn't pull away. He didn't linger, just a few seconds, then back. But the warmth remained. Neither of us spoke. We just sat there, The room filled with silence that was no longer empty, but full of something. Possibility. Risk. Curiosity. Emotion. I turned to look at him. His expression wasn't expectant. It wasn't even hopeful. It was simply honest. Like he wasn't trying to create a moment, but recognize one already unfolding. There was no kiss. No dramatic shift. Just that look. That touch. That silence. And in that space between doing and not doing, I felt everything that could happen. And everything that might not. Eventually, he stood. "Good night," he said, quietly. "Good night," I replied, still staring at the place where our hands had touched. He walked toward the stairs, the soft creak of the wood marking each step. I listened until it stopped, then leaned back into the couch and stared at the ceiling. The music played on. The drink remained unfinished. My skin still remembered his fingers, and I couldn't help but wonder if some moments weren't meant to go further, only far enough to show you a door you hadn't noticed before, and leave you standing at its threshold, heart racing, not sure whether to knock or walk away. I shut the guest room door behind me softly, as if the sound itself might shatter something delicate. My heart was still racing. The room was dim, lit only by a narrow strip of hallway light seeping in through the bottom of the door. It smelled faintly of clean sheets and cedarwood. I dropped my phone on the nightstand and sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the warmth of his hand in mine. Or maybe just the idea of it. What had that been? It hadn't been a mistake. Or had it? A moment stretched too far? A line walked, just close enough to burn? I leaned back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling, barely blinking. My thoughts tangled around themselves. Was it real? Was it something I imagined, made bigger by late-night loneliness and soft music and the glow of quiet vulnerability? But then I remembered the weight of his gaze, the way he said my name like it meant something, the gentle brush of his fingers, not accidental, not hesitant, intentional. And then he walked away. No explanation, no apology, just silence and that look. I turned on my side and pulled the blanket up, though I wasn't cold. My skin was buzzing. My thoughts were loud. Too loud. How had I never noticed him like that before? He'd always been Ryan's dad. The background, figure, stoic, sharp, reserved. I'd seen him dozens of times over the years, at birthday parties, school events, random weekend sleepovers, but never like this, never like someone who felt close enough to reach and complicated enough to matter. And yet, looking back now, I wondered if there had always been something. Fleeting glances, long pauses, a softness in his voice when he asked how I was. I'd always chalked it up to manners, age, parental politeness. But tonight was different. I felt something, and more than that, I wanted to feel it. That realization scared me. Not because it was wrong, but because it was real. And being under his roof, under his son's roof, made everything feel heavier. Like it wasn't just about me and him, but the whole fragile web between us. What if I'd misread it? What if this was just grief, or loneliness, or some unspoken ache twisting itself into intimacy? What if wanting something, someone, outside, the boundaries you've always lived inside didn't make you brave, but foolish? A soft knock broke through the noise in my head. I sat up instantly, heart thudding. Another knock. Gentle, hesitant. I stood and opened the door just enough to see him standing there. "Mr. Bennett, David." He looked tired and nervous, like he was holding his breath. "I couldn't sleep either," he said quietly. "Mind if I sit for a minute?" I hesitated, not because I didn't want to, but because everything felt fragile, like one wrong word could undo whatever thread had started weaving between us. But I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, hands in the pockets of his pajama pants. I sat on the edge of the bed, and he pulled the desk chair around to face me, close, but not too close. The light from the hallway was still leaking in, casting both of us in gold-edged shadow. "I've been replaying it," he said after a moment. "That moment on the couch." "So have I said. My voice was barely a whisper. He nodded. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't plan any of this." "I know. But I won't pretend I didn't feel it," he added. His voice cracked slightly, then steadied. "I did. I swallowed hard. My mouth felt dry. My hands were gripping the blanket like I needed something to hold on to. I don't know what to do with it," I admitted. "I don't even know what it is. It's connection," he said. "Unexpected, messy, but real." We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, I asked, "Is this wrong?" He looked at me for a while. "It's complicated, because of the timing, because of Ryan, because neither of us expected this. But wrong?" He shook his head slowly. "No. Wanting to be seen, to be close to someone. That's not wrong." Exhaled, the tightness in my chest loosening just enough to breathe. "I think part of me has been craving this kind of honesty," I said. "Not even the moment, just someone being real with me. No masks." He smiled, and it was softer than I'd ever seen it. "I saw that in you," he said. "That's what pulled me in, not anything else." I nodded slowly, heart still pounding, but no longer in panic. Just presence. "What do we do now?" I asked. "We don't rush," he said. "We don't force anything. We stay honest, with ourselves and with each other." There was something steady in his voice, grounded. It made me trust him, even in the unknown. "Okay," I whispered. He stood up then, gently placed a hand on my shoulder for just a second, a warmth that traveled through me like a current, and turned toward the door. "I'll let you rest," he said. "Good night." "Good night, David." He paused, not at the name, but at the sound of it coming from me. His eyes lingered for one heartbeat longer, then he disappeared into the hallway. I lay back in bed, the door clicking shut behind him. The confusion was still there, but beneath it was something quieter, something steadier. Not certainty. Not yet. But possibility, and maybe, for now, that was enough. The house was still. It was sometime after midnight. I couldn't sleep, not really. I'd turned off the bedside lamp, but the glow from the hallway light still crept in under the crack of the door, like a persistent thought I couldn't shut out. I was sitting on the edge of the guest bed, legs dangling, blanket bunched behind me. My chest felt tight, not from anxiety, but from the weight of too many feelings stacked on top of each other. Then, there was a soft knock, a familiar one. I didn't speak. I just opened the door. David stood there, barefoot, his gray t-shirt, clinging slightly to his chest like he'd just gotten out of bed again. His face was unreadable at first, but not guarded. Just waiting. "I couldn't sleep," he said. Same words as before. But this time, we both knew what they carried. Me neither. I stepped aside. He entered. Slow, respectful, like he was stepping into something sacred. I sat back on the bed, and this time, he didn't grab the desk chair. He sat beside me. Not close enough to touch, but not far. We didn't speak right away. And it wasn't awkward. It was quiet in a way that made me feel like the moment could breathe. The space between us pulsed, heavy, charged, expectant. I felt it in my chest, in my fingertips, in the back of my throat. Everything felt amplified. The distant hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the tick of the wall clock, the soft inhale and exhale of his breath beside mine. "I don't know where this is going," I finally said, voice low. He turned slightly toward me. "Me neither. I don't even know what this is yet." "Something," he said. "Something I didn't see coming. Something that feels more honest than most things have in a long time." I nodded slowly, my eyes fixed on the floor. And then the silence stretched again. But this time, it didn't stretch empty. It stretched full, like a string pulled taut between two people waiting to see who would move first. When our eyes finally met, neither of us looked away. It wasn't a dramatic lean-in. No slow motion, no swelling music. Just a pause. A breath. And then his hand brushed mine. Still no words. Then, slowly, he leaned closer. Not assuming, not invading, just offering space between us to close, if I wanted it. I did. Our lips met, softly, like a question. My breath hitched, but I didn't pull away. Neither did he. It wasn't hungry. It wasn't hurried. It was quiet, trembling with something more than desire. A search. A recognition. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine. "Are you sure?" he whispered. I nodded. Yes. I wasn't sure in the way people write in books or swear in movies. But I was sure in the way that mattered. It felt honest, present, real. He touched the side of my face gently, like he was memorizing something, and then he kissed me again. Just as softly, just as slow. We didn't say anything more. We didn't need to. We just let the moment unfold around us. We held each other for a while, fully clothed, barely moving, breathing in sync. The way his arm wrapped around my shoulders felt grounding. The way my head rested against his chest felt safe, like the quiet part of the song where the beat falls away, and all you hear is what matters most. There was nothing rushed, nothing crude. Just two people resting in the truth of something that didn't need a name yet. His hand gently traced circles against the back of mine. My fingers curled around his shirt. The warmth of his skin beneath the fabric was steady, reassuring. He let out a slow breath and whispered, "I don't want this to be a mistake." "It isn't," I said. "Even if it gets messy later?" "I've lived through enough silence," I murmured, "to know that this kind of connection, it's rare. I'd rather have one honest moment that's messy than 100 quiet ones that mean nothing." He didn't respond right away, just pulled me a little closer. Eventually, I lay down, and he followed. The bed barely big enough for two grown men to fit comfortably. But somehow we did. We didn't face each other. We didn't hold on tightly. Just shoulder to shoulder, close enough to feel, far enough to think. The lights stayed off. The hallway glow dimmed as the rest of the house sank deeper into sleep, and I thought to myself, it didn't feel wrong, it felt quiet, like finally hearing the thing you didn't know you were waiting for. Like standing in a room that's always been there, but this time with the light turned on. We didn't talk about what it meant, about what came next. We just let it be, what it was, a beginning, not perfect, not expected, but real. And in that moment, that was everything. The light woke me before the sound did. It was soft, golden, almost like it had been filtered through something kind. The kind of morning light that made everything feel gentler, like the world had taken a deep breath overnight and decided to start fresh. I blinked against it, disoriented for a second. The guest room, the unfamiliar ceiling, the faint weight of something real still humming under my skin. David was gone. I ran my hand over the empty space beside me. It was still warm, just barely, like he hadn't been gone long. I sat up slowly. My heart wasn't racing like it had been last night. There was no panic, just a strange calm, steady and quiet. I didn't know what that meant yet, but it didn't feel like regret, not even close. On the nightstand, there was a folded piece of paper. I picked it up. "Breakfast's on. No pressure." My lips curled into a small smile. I got dressed quietly, pulling on the hoodie I'd worn the night before, ran a hand through my hair, and opened the door. The hallway was bright now. No shadows, no secrets, just sun-drenched wood floors, and the faint sound of a skillet sizzling downstairs. When I walked into the kitchen, David was standing by the stove, flipping pancakes like it was any other morning in the world. No drama, no hesitation, just him. He glanced over his shoulder when he heard me, and smiled. "Morning?" he said, voice easy, warm. "Morning." He nodded toward the table. "Coffee's fresh, mugs are in the usual spot." I poured myself a cup, and sat down, watching him move around the kitchen like this was routine, like we hadn't shared something fragile and real just hours earlier. And yet, it didn't feel like avoidance. It felt steady, comfortable, like we both knew something had shifted, and neither of us needed to define it just yet. He set a plate in front of me. Pancakes, strawberries, a little too much syrup. He remembered how I liked them. "Thanks," I said, meeting his eyes. He held my gaze for a moment longer than necessary, but not in a way that asked for more. Just in a way that said, "I see you." I still do. We ate quietly, not out of awkwardness, just mutual ease. Every now and then, we shared a small glance, or a smile, or a barely-there laugh at the way the syrup dripped too fast from the bottle. I was finishing my second pancake when Ryan shuffled in, hair sticking up like a cartoon character, wearing an old hoodie and pajama pants. "Morning," he mumbled. "Morning," we both said, at the same time, like it was rehearsed. He raised a sleepy eyebrow. "You guys eat already?" David gestured to the pan. "Still warm. Grab a plate." Ryan moved around the kitchen, completely unaware, oblivious in the best way. He didn't ask questions, didn't sense any shift in the room. And maybe that was what made the moment feel even more surreal. Because something had shifted. But it wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It just was. After breakfast, Ryan plopped on the couch with his phone. David leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely, his eyes flicking to mine as I rinsed my mug. "You heading out soon?" he asked casually. "Yeah. I've got a paper to finish." He nodded. "Drive safe." And that was it. No deep goodbye. No hidden messages. Just mutual understanding in the soft light of morning. As I grabbed my backpack from the guest room and slung it over my shoulder, I paused in the doorway, looked back once. The bed was made now, the night already folding itself into memory. I walked back through the kitchen. David looked up, just briefly. "Thanks for breakfast," I said. He smiled. "Any time." I left without fanfare. But as I stepped outside, the air felt lighter. The kind of light that sits on your skin instead of pressing down. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the wheel, heart steady. It hadn't been a mistake. It hadn't been planned. But sometimes, the quietest nights change you forever. And this one had. I didn't know where things would go from here. Maybe nowhere. Maybe somewhere unexpected. But I knew this. Something real had passed between us. And in a world full of noise that, however brief, however uncertain, was worth everything.